do we know about the supernatural? Does it exist? Or is it purely just imagination? How can we explain the unexplainable?
In this documentary, we will be looking at some famous ghost stories, experiences that people have had with the supernatural, and trying to make contact ourselves.
Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Archive. Earlier on this week we were set the task of making a documentary for part of our college course, and of course the supernatural is the most interesting thing to look at.
We had to do a mountain of research and some thinking into what kind of things we wanted to be talking about in this episode. Zach here is a bit of a skeptic. I like to think that I have an open mind. So in order to create a genuine experience for everybody at home, and for, of course, Zach.
Thanks, Alex.
We're going to be doing this episode from a point of view perspective, so that it's a bit more unstaged and real.
What about the what does it say? All the footage you see is real. We still need to do that.
Right.
That's in your thing. Just quickly do that.
All the footage you're all the footage you're about to see is real.
We start with a story of a very old island with a lot of old history and claims that have left the world a little bit puzzled.
Alcatraz is located in the San Francisco Bay, 1.5 miles offshore. Often referred to as the Rock, the small island was developed with facilities for a lighthouse, a military fortification, a military prison and a federal prison from 1933 until 63.
Prisoners, many of who were declared insane after serving time at Alcatraz, reportedly heard peculiar whispering sounds in the middle of the night. Figures and moaning and clanking of chains were reported to have been heard in cells that were known to be unoccupied.
In 1937, a prisoner had died one night from what seemed to have been natural causes, but when the prison guard did a head count, he reported to have one extra man in the line. He stared at the man in the face, looked down to his clipboard, looked back up, and the man was vanished. Later it turned out that the guard had reportedly seen the inmate that had died the night before.
So what are these paranormal entities that keep cropping up around the world? I'm sure we all have a story or two to share about a strange happening, and Shona Kennedy is no exception. I understand you've had a connection with the other side, Shona. Can you tell me a little more about what happened?
Well, it was when my eldest was 2.5, he'd have been, because his sister, well, in fact he was coming up to 3 because the sister was still quite young, still a baby. I'd been bathing them, he'd been bathed, he was sitting on the landing. I was still with his sister in the bathroom, and I could see through the door to where he was at the top of the landing. In fact, it was just over there. And he was just staring, looking down the passageway. I didn't think anything of it. He was just very still and he was looking. I carried on, finishing off, getting his sister ready for bed. And then I said to him, what are you looking at? And he turned and looked at me. And then he looked back and he just smiled. He was quite happy. And it wasn't until I'd actually taken his sister and put her in her cot, I said to him, what were you looking at? And he just said to me, the lady, Mummy, the lady. And I was absolutely terrified. I thought, well, there's somebody in the house. There is somebody has come into the house and looked up round the top of the stairs here and been looking at him. I didn't know what to do to start with. Anyway, I grabbed both the children, put them in my daughter's bedroom, closed the door and went off in search. I thought, I've got to know if there's somebody in the house.
Can you describe what you felt? Fear? Maybe sadness?
I was very fearful initially because it was something I didn't understand, but actually thinking about things afterwards, I wouldn't have said I was frightened, but I was curious really and intrigued.
So it wasn't necessarily a happy experience then? It's obviously stayed with you over the years. Do you think the experience has changed you at all?
I suppose I'm more open-minded perhaps now, whereas before I would have poo-pooed it. I'm certainly more open-minded. I think there are many more things, in this life that we perhaps don't understand.
What would you tell non-believers? Would you try to convince them that the supernatural things do happen, or do you believe it is a personal experience one should go through on their own in order to understand it?
I don't think you can convince anyone if they really don't want to believe. It certainly helps to have had some kind of experience yourself, a bit like me, to make it more real. And I'm sure there are many more people out there that have had far more interesting experiences than me. But certainly I would tell them what happened to me, and that I was completely convinced at the time, and still am, that what I heard and saw was there.
So it says here that a ghost is the soul or spirit of a dead person or animal that can appear in visible form or other manifestation to the living. Descriptions of the apparition of ghosts vary widely from an invisible presence to translucent or barely visible wispy shapes to realistic lifelike visions.
Our next interview was somewhat of an eye-opener. We went to speak to Viv Bell, who has claimed to have a rather definite experience.
What did she say on the phone to you?
This is the one. She said it's she's going to talk to us about one of her patients from when she was a nurse back in the day.
Okay.
Apparently a woman who was alive and not alive, as she put it. So
Well, we will
should be quite interesting.
soon find out. Yeah, can't wait. Let's go.
Your rucksack got anything in it that we need?
Nah, leave it.
Cool.
Let's go. There she is. Oh, dogs.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
We'll go through the dining room, just through here, and to your left.
Hi Viv, thank you
Hello.
for doing the interview. I understand you've had a connection with the other side. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened?
It was a connection with the other side, I suppose. It was when I was nursing, and we're going back to late 1970s, and I was working on a medical ward, and I was a student nurse. We had a patient called June who had been very ill for some time, and she was very ashen with grey hair, and her family bought her a very bright blue dressing gown, so she was very striking, and we used to laugh because she used to look corpse-like in it, and we always used to make a joke of the fact that she used to look iller in this dressing gown than she did ever. And but anyway, she wore it and she loved it. When you're nursing, you do 8 or 9 or even 10 days on the trot, and then you maybe take 3 or 4 days off, and then you go back. So I had been off duty for 3 days, and when I came back on duty, I came back on a lunchtime shift, and when you come back on the ward, you go straight into helping with dinners, doing a bedpan round, taking round things for people to wash their hands and face with. And so I was straight on the ward, and I walked past the linen cupboard, and June was standing in the linen cupboard. She didn't say anything, she just smiled, and I said, "Oh, hi June," and walked past, never thought any more of it. And then when we had the nurse's report, which was when all the patients were settled, she was missed off the patient reports. And I said, "What about June? You didn't mention June." And they said, "Oh, June, yes, sadly June died on Tuesday."
What did you feel? If it wasn't scary, was it?
Shocked afterwards and disbelief.
Did you then decide that you wanted to study it a little?
Yeah. Since then, I've always been open-minded when it comes to feelings and spirits, and I always think that they're around. If there's something unfinished business, then I feel that they will appear to you.
Maybe we're going to be doing a little bit of work with a Ouija board.
Okay?
Yeah, so...
Be very careful. Be very careful.
Have you ever experienced one before, or used
We have played Ouija, and you can hone into not evil forces, but playful forces. I've seen light bulbs shatter. I've seen glasses that come to the edge of the table with nobody touching them and be tipping.
And you've seen that?
Yes.
Talking with Viv led us to wonder, can we really contact the dead? Spirits that are not of this world?
I can't see how it's possible. I'd love to believe it could be. I mean, it would certainly explain a few things about the universe that science can't, but I do essentially rely on logic to dictate my beliefs, and that prevents me from believing in that which I've never seen. In truth, we'd both like to witness something of the other ourselves, and it is for that reason alone that we've decided to play Ouija.
We shall see. And a Ouija board is said to be, if done correctly, a gateway to communication with the dead. We're in Rotherfield Manor, now a college in Henley-on-Thames, to investigate a certain paranormal disturbance up here. We headed in with an open mind and were joined by Viv. So with 3 members of college staff, we went into the attics to conduct the inner Ouija board, to see whether we could get some form of response from the Grey Lady.
We set up in the day, and then Alex, Viv and myself waited around until about 11:30 p.m. that evening to conduct the experiment. I think we got a little more than we bargained for. Actually, that would be good, Sarah, yeah. That would be good if you could do the note-taking.
How's that?
Alex, this is a really good shot.
Yeah?
Yeah, really nice. Look at that.
Awesome, man. Wicked, Sarah.
So,
Right.
You need to be able to read what it's going
It's
to.
recorded.
So another...
Spirit, this is a safe place. We only wish to communicate with you, ask you questions and learn from you. Please come through and talk with us for a while. So now do we put our hands on this, each one right index finger. And where do we take it? Are there any spirits in this room?
After placing white candles down on the board, we started by warming it up with repetitive circular motions and questions. It is said that an energy needs to build before contact can be made.
Are there any spirits in this room?
If you do not wish to communicate with us, please give us any form of sign.
After a while of nothing happening, we started to notice an obvious change in the atmosphere. The room went colder, and I felt like I was being watched.
Once the noises started becoming more and more frequent, I decided we should end the session. I didn't want things to get too out of hand. Bye.
Okay, so it's the day after the Ouija, and we've come back up to clear up our session because we got out pretty quickly last night when things started hotting up a little bit the way they did. I had to admit I was a little shocked. My mind hasn't changed from being sceptic, but to the believer. But I mean, I'm definitely open now to to more investigation, to whether there are actually these stories, to whether these stories are actually, whether they have worth, whether they're truer than I originally thought them to be. I'm a bit more open to it.
Yeah, precisely. And I have no doubt in my mind that we made a connection, a weak connection, but a connection nonetheless with the Grey Lady.
At the start of this project, I wouldn't have agreed with you, but I think that what we saw here last night was
it was a bit creepy.
It was a little bit creepy, yeah.
So yeah.
Can we leave now, please?
Yeah, let's go. Top dollar.